Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Tuesday night here in Azeroth, and we have a great show lined up for you. We're going to be talking about the evolution of World of Warcraft from a system standpoint, systems and features, from vanilla all the way up to midnight. It's kind of an interesting journey. I went through and put this together after a comment that I received on Spotify, and it really got me thinking, and I might have gone a little bit a different direction than the original request, but I had a lot of fun with putting this together, so I hope you enjoy it. Plus, we've got a bunch of WoW news. Obviously, there's nothing going on in-game today. Oh, wait, that's right. It's patch day. Happy patch day! That's right. Patch 12.1 is currently being loaded onto the servers. By the time you listen to this, it will be live, and you will be enjoying the Coiled Isle and the Curse of Ula'tek and all that good stuff. So, so that's fun, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Servers are still down, but by the time that I'm done here, I'm sure they'll be up. So, but yeah, that's what we've got lined up for you tonight on Azeroth United. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And before I get started with the news, I will, as I always do, put together a quick roundup of what I got up to last week in World of Warcraft. So I did, last minute before the patch, I was like, all right, I'm going to log on. I'm going to update all my characters, make sure everybody's in a good space. So I got my hunters, I'm level 254. The paladin, I didn't really do anything with him. He's still at 221. The warrior, who I just leveled to 90, she's stuck at 203. So, those characters are all kind of parked. Death Knight's at 257. So, nobody's really in a great state going into the patch, but it's at least I'll be able to kind of power through some of the earlier stuff. One thing that I did, though, was really funny, is because I was going through this last night, while I was also doing the show notes and everything. So I went through and I was updating everyone, checking everyone's gear, crafting a few things. And I got to my Death Knight last, and it was about 1:00 in the morning, local time, by the time I got to him. And so I went through and I was like, oh, I've got a bunch of adventurer crests and some veteran crests, and I don't need that anymore. So I went to the vendor and I bought a bunch so I could basically upcycle to the champion and hero crests. Well, it was just after 1:00 in the morning, which means that the season had reset. So I was not able to use those items. Yes, the season resets at 10 p.m. Pacific time the night before the patch, which is when things like title cut off and everything happen. I didn't realize that. So Reddit, I looked it up on Reddit, and sure enough, that's the case. Other people are having the same problem. As you know, Reddit is always very kind and understanding when people don't understand what's going on. I'm kidding. Everybody's mean and rude, but no, seriously, it was actually kind of cool. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's not really a big deal. I just thought I'd get a couple more item levels going into the patch, but realistically, it doesn't matter. I'm going to replace that gear pretty quickly as soon as I start doing stuff in the Coiled Isle. So anyway, so yeah, I did that. I did some more time walking on my druid. So he's 83 now. I don't know. I'm kind of in a uncertain state. I've been playing him resto, and it is fun. And he's traditionally always been a resto druid. But I think it was in Dragonflight, I switched him to Guardian, so I could do world quests more easily. And man, whichever patch it was in Dragonflight, that was the patch when Guardian Druids were really good. I was just destroying everything. It was a lot of fun. But now I've switched him back to Resto, and I think that I'm happy with where Resto is. I don't know if it's actually in a good place, but I do think that overall the class balance is really good across the board. Sure, you're going to have at high end certain classes, certain specializations are going to perform better. But I don't really feel like any class or specialization is bad right now. Maybe I just haven't tried the bad ones. Maybe I should try Rogue or something. But I actually really enjoyed that. The other thing that I did is I wanted to play a shaman. I've played a shaman on and off throughout the years. I actually first leveled my shaman back in Wrath of the Lich King as a enhancement shaman. But over time, I've really I don't enjoy the gameplay with Maelstrom and all that. So I've switched over to Resto. So I started playing that character, and she was 73. So she was still sitting around Dornogal, not really doing much of anything. But I ran a bunch of time walkings, leveled really fast, got her up to 83, and actually had a lot of fun with Shaman. I feel like the Shaman is in a really good place. Resto Shaman, at least, is in a really good place right now. So I was having a lot of fun with that. The gameplay felt good. And to me, that's one of the biggest indicators. Does it feel good? I don't care what tier lists say. And honestly, I don't even know what the tier lists say because I stopped looking at them because it doesn't really matter. Because unless I'm doing high level Mythic Plus or Mythic Raid, nobody cares. If I'm doing a time walking or maybe even like a Mythic 7, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you are. As long as you know how to play your class, you're fine. If I was doing a 17, then people are going to care. And they're going to say, well, you need to be whatever the meta healer is or whatever the meta tank is. But I just don't feel pressured anymore to perform in that capacity. I'm going to play the character that I want in the way that I want. And that's fine. I feel like that's the way to do it. That's the way to enjoy playing World of Warcraft, is to just not worry about these things. Because sure, you're going to get the occasional comment, oh, why would you play that? It's not, it's trash right now. There are no trash classes right now. There are classes that are better and there are classes that are not as good. But the reality is all the classes are good. Blizzard has done such a good job on balancing. There's always going to be issues, and there's always going to be that one class that's in a weird space. But for the content that I do, up through, and I would say even including Heroic Raid, you could pretty much play anything in Heroic Raid. Probably. Depends on your group, I guess. But especially for normal Raid and Delves, all of that stuff, it's easy. I mean, I was running some Delves, and it's like, you don't even have to think. You just, set, I almost said brand, set Valera as the tank and just go. So it's pretty easy. So anyway, that's kind of where I am. These are my 6 characters that I'm taking into season 2. I don't know who I'm going to end up playing the most. Right now, it looks like the Hunter, but it could still be the DK. It could be the Shaman. Having a lot of fun playing the Shaman. I don't know. I haven't healed in a long time. Healing is something that I used to do a lot of, and I got so burnt out on it. And now I'm kind of getting that itch back. And I think it's my one complaint right now is the way that they changed all the add-ons. I don't know how all the healing add-ons work anymore. So I just did the built-in click interface that Blizzard gives you, which is cool and it works just fine. But I feel like I could be doing a little bit better. So yeah, that's the only thing. So I need to do a little bit of research on that, but I'll get there. I mean, she's 83, so I'm not too worried about it right now. So, yeah, so that's what I've got going on in Modern WoW. In Classic, and I feel bad, but I really have just been raid logging. I've got all these characters on anniversary servers that I was playing and I was leveling up, and one by one I've abandoned all of them. Still playing the Hunter, obviously, in raids, but that's pretty much it. I don't do a lot of other content. And I think, depending on what information we get at BlizzCon, if Blizzard says, hey, Wrath of the Lich King Anniversary, I'll probably start playing a lot more on Anniversary. But I don't really want to put the time in if it's not going anywhere. If they're like, hey, Sunwell, and then it's going to die, I'm sorry. I love the guild. I love the raid group, but that's not where I want to be playing. So it's not where I want to be putting my time. So, yeah, unfortunately that's where we are. So, it stinks. because everybody should be able to play whatever version of WoW they want without having to worry that it's going to, quote, go away one day. But that's where I am. I'm worried that it's going to go away one day. So anyway, yeah, that's what I got. Aside from that, well, that's really it. Right. But yeah, really just preparing mentally for the patch. Gonna run over to the Coiled Isle and look for Zul'Jin and do all that stuff. So, patch day is always fun for me. I always have a good time because it's really interesting to say, hey, here's something fresh and something new. I don't love the seasonal framework that Blizzard has put in place where it's like you go 6 months and then everything you've done is basically reset and you start fresh. I don't necessarily love that, but in that one moment of rushing in and doing all the new quests and suddenly world quests are important, heroic dungeons are important, that's fun. But I don't like the idea of everything I built is now trash, right? So I guess it's a weird two sides of the same coin, but it is what it is. And I think that's one of the problems or not the problems, but one of the talking points in modern WoW is how do we all feel about this? This is what Blizzard has essentially decided is going to be the case. We've got this 8-week patch cadence. We've got a 24-week season. That's just how it is now. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. All right. We're going to move on now to the mailbag. All right, still no bumper for the mailbag. Sorry. We got to do Spotify comment last week. This is for episode 148, patch 12.1, the Curse of Ula'tek. And this is from Zachary B. He says, "Hello, my name is Tazak DB. Love the idea of breaking down WoW terms. You are correct. The guild in TBC is great. Been an adorable for over 6 months now. Been listening to your podcast for a bit longer. I stopped playing the first time when Kata came out. Keep up the great work." Thank you, Zachary. I have spoken to you in the past as well. The guild is great. We are still running 4 guilds. So we have the main guild, Adept Scholars Society, and then we have another, which is like the max level alt guild, which is Adept Scholar Society with no second S. And then we have the Adorable Scholars Society and the Aspiring Scholars Society. So it's a good group of people. It's really fun. Although I will say it is a little weird right now. I feel like things are in kind of a lull. A lot of people are just really gung-ho anniversary, and a lot of people are like, let's see what they say at BlizzCon. So, and obviously that's the boat I'm in. But thank you, Tazek, for your for listening to the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And hit me up in game if you see me on my Hunter Cenarian. You can hit me up and maybe we could run something or whatever. So all right, that's gonna do that for that. Let's move on to the news.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so we're going to start off with a little bit of a sad piece of news here. Wowhead has reported that senior composer Adam Burgess has announced his departure from Blizzard Entertainment. Senior composer Adam Burgess, known for many soundtracks in Overwatch and World of Warcraft, has announced his departure from Blizzard Entertainment. Adam Burgess has been at Blizzard Entertainment for over 11 years, composing soundtracks for the World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and Diablo franchises. Earlier this week, he announced that he's leaving Blizzard Entertainment to try, quote, something new starting next month. 11 years is a long time. And if you think about all of the good music that we've had in WoW in the past 11 years, that was 2015. So it was basically halfway through WoD. So pretty much he did composed, I would assume, all the music for Legion forward. That's a bummer because that's been one of the brightest spots of WoW, especially during the Shadowlands when things were so dreary and people were wondering, is this the death of WoW? Is this the end? Is this the way the world ends? The music was one really bright spot. And I feel like that's something that Blizzard has learned over the years is they can kind of soothe us with music. Yeah, that's a big bummer. So it doesn't specify exactly what music he's worked on, but it's nice that um, I don't know. It's nice that he was able to contribute that, and I'm glad that he's able to move on to something new because not everyone gets that opportunity. Some people have to work in a job that they hate for many years. So, but yeah, it's he will be missed for sure, or at least his music will. I don't know him personally, but there you go. All right, let's go to Blizzard. So this is coming from Windows Central, and the writer Jez Corden. If you've ever listened to Unshackled Fury, which is the Berserker podcast, he does every other week, and then he takes a break during the summer, so he hasn't had a few episodes or an episode in a few weeks. But it's a really great podcast. He Berserker and Jez Corden is his co-host. So and I've had my issues with Jez over the years with some of his takes, but he's a great reporter. And so yeah, coming from windowscentral.com, Blizzard is now the top performing Xbox studio, says internal emails, as the Overwatch maker ends fiscal year 26 over delivering on Microsoft's projections. Yeah, so this basically came from an email that Johanna Ferries, the president of Blizzard, sent internally to all the team members. Yeah, it sounds like Blizzard is actually doing well. It says in fiscal year 26, Blizzard ended the year as the top performing studio in Xbox's Studios division, and this past year has marked our third highest fiscal for top line revenue in Blizzard's history. Ferries went on to explain that Blizzard has begun seeing consecutive years of growth again for the first time since Overwatch launched back in 2016. It's a huge feat considering the intense competition from the likes of Roblox, Fortnite, and other service-type entities eating up a lot of the attention. Fiscal year 25 and 26 were our first back-to-back years of growth since fiscal year 17, Ferries explained. Diablo 4, Lord of Hatred, and Overwatch drove exceptional performance, in particular with Overwatch delivering the strongest quarter since 2022. Ferries emphasized that the success will help them invest even more in Blizzard game staff and other initiatives that will shape Blizzard's future. Now, here's the thing. With all of the layoffs going on right now with Xbox and Microsoft, and the layoffs we've had at Blizzard throughout the past few years, you have to take this with a grain of salt, because one of the reasons why they've had so much profit is because they fired so many people. But the games are doing exceptionally well. Overwatch is in a really good place right now. Diablo 4 is in a good place. Even WoW is in a really good place. I was actually talking to my daughter and her boyfriend about this because they both play a lot of different games, and I brought up this article, and his her boyfriend's immediate response was, "Oh, Overwatch, right?" And I said, "Yeah, that's pretty much it. Overwatch kind of leading the charge there." But yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know if this is going to translate to more staff for Blizzard or new projects, but you have to innovate, you have to create new things. But the world of today, 2026, is more about safer projects, safer investments than it is about taking those wild swings that Blizzard used to take in years past. So we're not quite in the same point as we were back, air quote, back in the day, but I feel like things are looking up for Blizzard Entertainment. And I do feel like this BlizzCon is probably one of the most hyped BlizzCons I've seen in a long time. Certainly 2023 was very exciting, but we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what it was going to be like after a few years off. Now we've got an expectation. We've got a lot of things that Blizzard is potentially going to announce. And not just World of Warcraft related. There's teases about StarCraft game. There's teases about Heroes of the Storm, which is bizarre to me when they already ended development on Heroes of the Storm. But, these rumors are swirling around out there. Obviously, we have Diablo, Overwatch, WoW, Hearthstone, lots of games that Blizzard could give us things, news and updates on, and maybe even a new IP. We don't know. We will see, but it is good to hear that Blizzard is doing well. I'm hoping that translates into no more layoffs for our good friends at Blizzard. Reading through the article, one of the things that got me was that they were talking to John Carmack from id Software, and about how that studio got particularly slammed. And if you don't know John Carmack or id Software, that's he created Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein 3D, those types of games. Somebody asked him, like, well, why don't you just buy the company back from Microsoft? He's like, I don't have that kind of money. It's like, yeah, the IP is worth so much, but they're basically just sitting on it because it's worth more to sit on it than it is to waste development dollars on potentially developing a game that is not going to be a huge success. And that's what happens is these companies buy up these IPs, they sit on them so that nobody else can make them, but they don't want to invest money into them because you have to do smart investments and careful investments, and take small steps. Don't take any big steps. No big swings. Just a nice line drive into left center, and you're good. So, anyway, that's what's going on there. All right, let's get out of the financial discussions and get into something ridiculous like speculating on the future of Classic Plus. So this 1.60 patch that has been on the development server, it briefly moved over to the vendor server before moving back to the development server. We now see a 1.60.1 patch. And typically when you see a .1, especially in Classic, that means like a new version of the game. Think like, .0 would be Molten Core and Onyxius Lair. .1 would be the PvP stuff, or maybe Blackwing Lair or something like that. So the question on everybody's mind is Blizzard making new content for this mysterious project that everybody's calling Project Camelot? Is Blizzard developing new content for this? Is this something completely out of the ordinary? All of the speculation, of course, is pointing to BlizzCon and saying, whatever it is, Blizzard is going to give us all of the details at BlizzCon. So everybody calm down. But it's fun to speculate. One thing that I will say, though, this leak that's been making the rounds is one of those things that if you haven't seen it, I did post it in the, I don't know where I posted it. I'll post it again. I'll put it in the Discord, which you can get to by going to AzerothUnitedPod.com. This leak, it basically details out everything that's happening right now in WoW and what's going to happen in the next few years. Now, obviously, it could all be just crazy speculation, but there was a Reddit post that happened in August of 2025, which was the same time that the midnight release date was announced. This Reddit post was I think it was a week or two before the midnight announcement, right? So we didn't exactly know when it was going to be, but we had a rough idea. The only other information on there that prior to that was already known. Everything's already happened. So the only information that we have that was new on here was the midnight release date and the Burning Crusade Anniversary release date, which those both were pretty speculative. And if you look at this, it looks like the Burning Crusade Anniversary release date is a little bit off from what actually happened. I'm not saying that this leak is fake. It could be very well be real. I'm saying that people who say it's proved are not entirely accurate. So let's just keep our expectations tempered. It very well could be Camelot. It could be something completely different. It all could be lies. We don't know. We'll find out at BlizzCon. But Blizzard is definitely working on something. And that something looks like it's ramping up to be at least tested or play tested at BlizzCon. So we'll see. All right, moving on. Burning Crusade Anniversary Phase 3 PTR has been released. Blizzard has put out the PTR for TBC Anniversary Phase 3. I find this so fascinating. Blizzard screwed up. Somebody screwed up. And they accidentally announced Burning Crusade Anniversary Phase 3, August 13th, a few weeks ago. And then that got deleted. And then Blizzard had to come out and say, okay, Burning Crusade Anniversary Phase 3 is coming out on August 27th. Way, way earlier than they normally would have announced it. They announced the release of that phase before Blizzard announced when 12.1 was going to launch. That's how long ago they announced it, because of that messed up tweet. So here we are finally, which feels like it's been forever. And it's like, no, we're actually here now, where we're getting this update, the PTR update for TBC Anniversary. So anyway, raid testing will begin August 14th, and it's going to go through the weekend. So if you are on Anniversary or you want to go check that out, it's Black Temple and Mount Hyjal, and it's going to go this weekend. So check those out. In modern World of Warcraft, you can get a new, there's a new Twitch drop. So the Sorcerer's Grassy Garb, which is probably one of the most unexciting Twitch drops I've ever seen. It's the same Sorcerer's hat and cloak that you can get in the trading post. It's just a different color of it. And this is the new Twitch drop for patch 12.1. I feel like I don't want to say that this is bad, because I'm sure there's people out there who are so excited about this particular piece of transmog. I just don't get it. I feel like if you're going to do a Twitch drop, it should be something that you can't already get in game, or something special in some way, not just a recolor of what you can already get in the trading post of a transmog that, in my personal opinion, is not very good. But it's there. So if you watch 4 hours of Twitch streaming, which I did stream raid last week. That's something I forgot to mention. Thank you to the people that jumped on. But if you watch 4 hours of Twitch stream, then you will get this Sorcerer's Grassy Garb Twitch drop. So, and I've talked about before how to link your Twitch account to your Battle.net account. But if you need a reminder, I'm sure there's an article somewhere. I can't find it. I think Blizzard deleted the original article, so I don't know. Maybe it's on Twitch. But anyway, you have to link your Twitch account to your Battle.net account, and then you will get credit for your 4 hours of watch time of anybody who's streaming World of Warcraft with drops enabled. So there you go. Now that Season 1 of Midnight has come to a close, you can do your Midnight Season 1 recap courtesy of Raider.io. These are always fun. I mean, I didn't have much of a recap this season personally, because I didn't do a whole lot of Midnight content. But if you've done a bunch of stuff, it shows you some cool things, like who you played with a bunch. You know, what was your highest key? What did your gearing look like throughout the course of the season? What was your raid? Stuff like that. It's fun. It's kind of a cool little summary of what you did the last 6 months. I think that's a really fun thing that Raider.io does. I know a lot of people hate Raider.io, or like to hate on Raider.io. I think sites like Raider.io, Warcraft Logs, Wowhead, they serve a purpose in the community, and they give us something of value. Yes, there's also downsides to all of them, but you have to look at the upside and decide whether or not it's worth it. It's like using Google. If you use Google thinking there's no downside, you're mistaken. There is a huge downside to using Google. It's called Google gets all your personal info. So, there's going to be downsides to whatever it is that you do. But in this case, I feel like the upsides are acceptable. I'm happy to use Raider.io. I use Warcraft Logs. I hate pricing, but I still like to go on the logs and figure out what happened or what's going on or whatever. And obviously Wowhead I use extensively, especially even more so now that I started doing this podcast. I use Wowhead way more than I ever did before. So check out your Midnight Season 1 recap on Raider.io. And the last news item here is the Midnight Curse of Ula'tek pre-season details. So Blizzard has given us a kind of overview of what's going to happen in the week before the raids launch. This is after the patches launch, but before season 2 technically starts. It's interesting because I don't know that they've ever done this before. Maybe they haven't. I don't recall it, but there's a lot of questions going into this particular week. Things like, will I get a Great Vault this week? When I log into the game tonight, am I going to have a Great Vault? Will activities that I do preseason, this coming week, will they give me credit to a Great Vault next week? And what season gear will that be? Will I be able to upgrade my gear? What content will I be able to do? Things like that. So, for as far as the content goes, and this is the biggest question that people always have, what will I be able to do? You'll be able to do all the outdoor content, curse searches, the Vault of Ula'tek. Those are all going to be available during the preseason. you can get Pinnacle Cash, and a Pinnacle Cash will give you Season 2 veteran gear. So that's 2 pieces of veteran gear that you're going to be able to get this week, as long as you're doing the outdoor content or whatever. You'll also be able to do the Season 2 dungeon pool in Heroic and Mythic 0, which includes the new Altar of Fangs dungeon. So Mythic 0 will reward champion 1 out of 6 gear, but you can only run it 1 time this week. Next week, you'll be able to run it every day. But this week only, it's going to be just the 1 time. They don't want people stacking up on champion gear, which makes sense. All delves will be available 1 through 11, but no bountiful delves. You'll be able to do the new Nemesis on ? difficulty, but not ? The Tidebound Grotto, which is the new world boss layer, that's going to be available on world difficulty. So you go in like you're going in a delve, and it'll auto queue you. So that I think that's great. I wasn't sure how that was going to work, so it's nice to know this is exactly how we're going to get it. And it's going to drop Season 2 veteran gear items, and they're BOP, no BOEs this week. I don't know about next week, but this week it's going to be BOP gear. I think the world boss is now going to drop BOP gear because of the scaling difficulty. So yeah, there you go. Hard mode Prey will be available this week, and we'll drop Season 2 veteran gear. Nightmare Prey will not be available until next week. So that's the stuff that we're going to be able to do. As far as the Great Vault will offer you Season 1 rewards this week when you log in tonight. Credit for Season 2 Great Vault will start this week, and you'll be able to collect those rewards next week on August 18th. Your crafting sparks will also begin dropping during the preseason. Your Void Core bonus rolls will not be available in the first Great Vault of Season 2. They will become available during the second week of Season 2, which is August 25th. And then those can be selected by anyone who's unlocked at least 3 Great Vault slots. And for the first week of Season 2, the first Great Vault of Season 2, the maximum gear level attainable from the World Row will be Champion 3 out of 6. After that, it will move up to the Hero 1 out of 6. So if you don't understand any of that, just know you can do plenty of stuff this week, and there's lots going on. The things you won't be able to do: Raid, Mythic Plus, Bountiful Delves, Nightmare Prey. That's pretty much it. Everything else you'll be able to do, at least in some capacity. So go out there and have a good time when the servers come up. All right, let's move on now to what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. The bonus event for this week is the World Quest bonus event. You're going to get the Sign of the Emissary buff. Reputation gains from World Quests increased by 50%. You can also pick up the quest The World Awaits from Archmage Aethys Sunreaver in Silvermoon. He asks you to complete 10 World Quests in Kazalgar, and you will be rewarded with 2,500 reputation for the faction of your choice, and I believe it does not affect the new Zuljara reputation in the Coiled Isle. I can't say that for sure because I haven't looked, but I don't believe that's one of the choices. So this is a great one, though, for the first week, because you're going to want to go do World Quest, because that's where you're going to get adventurer gear from. So I feel like this is a great quest, or a great bonus event to have the first week of a patch. I always like it when it lines up that way. PvP Brawl for the week is Shadowpan Showdown. Step into Tiger's Peak Arena and get ready for the Shadowpan Showdown. You'll race for control of center control points and activate one of 2 bosses. The first to kill the other team's boss wins. They win. Yay. When you zone in, you'll get the quest Something Different to win a PvP Brawl, and you'll be rewarded with Conquest Honor and Marks of Honor. As always, the Shadowpan Showdown is a really fun one. This is a very good brawl because it's completely different. You're in an arena. You're not in a battleground. It's a completely different gameplay method. I mean, this to me is like quintessential brawl. I love this one. This one's a lot of fun. And finally, we have the free t-shirt day coming up. This is August 16th. Free t-shirt day. Vendors have been spotted in several locations throughout Azeroth selling t-shirts for free. How do you sell something for free? You're just giving it away then. Come on, Blizz. AI slop. Uh, sorry. There are even rumors of entertainers launching free secondhand shirts in capital cities. You can pick this, or you can go participate in this in Stormwind, in the Dwarven District, or Orgrimmar in the Valley of Honor. Like I said, it's August 16th, and basically there's an NPC that walks around and launches t-shirts onto the ground. You go click on it, and you get that t-shirt. This is really good for transmog, picking up things that you may or may not already have. I already have all the t-shirts, so I don't need to do it, but it's definitely a cool thing to do. There's also vendors that sell t-shirts throughout the world, which you can check those out on Wowhead or whatever. But this is one of those cool little micro holidays. It's like, hey, you're going to go get something. A lot of the micro holidays I don't love because it's like, yeah, you went and did something cool, but you don't get anything for it. There's no toy. There's no pet. There's no achievement. There's no transmog. There's no housing object. There's nothing. This one, you get a t-shirt. Hey, what else do you want? Right? I see people wrestle at sporting events because they shot the t-shirt out of the cannon. People are fighting for a stupid t-shirt. It's like, this is a $10 t-shirt. Just go buy one. But, they got it for free, so it's better. There you go. So that's what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. Let's move on now to our main topic of the week.
It's time for the main topic of the week.
So tonight, we're going to discuss the evolution of World of Warcraft. As I mentioned, this came to us from a Spotify comment that we received a couple weeks ago, and just a interesting idea that I hadn't really thought about previously. So let's go back to Spotify for just a moment. HP0927 says, love the podcast. As someone who played from vanilla through Wrath of the Lich King, your content about Classic is pure nostalgia. Since I haven't played WoW in over a decade, all the modern terms and new game mechanics can be tough to follow. Would you ever consider doing an episode outlining the major changes from original WoW up to Midnight, or alternatively, a quick guide to retail specific slang and overall mechanics? So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go through all of the systems that Blizzard has released in World of Warcraft. Some of them are pretty basic and very simple. Some of them are more complex, and we'll have to get into a little bit more detail for them. But it's interesting when you look at WoW from the entirety of its life cycle. From 2004 to 2026, it's a vastly different game. But there are still certain things that still feel Azeroth, those comfortable, friendly reminders. So we're going to be talking about the changes, the differences, and highlighting where these things merge off into kind of a different direction. So here we go. To start off with, we're going to break this up into different eras of World of Warcraft. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go through it, if I wanted to go system by system, or if I wanted to go expansion by expansion. I think expansion by expansion is probably the easiest one to follow, but I'm going to try to avoid just reading through, here's the features that were added in Battle for Azeroth, Warfronts, Azerite armor, that sort of thing. I don't want to do that. I feel like that's going to be a little bit boring. I do want to talk about some of these things and kind of give my opinions on them, but it's we're going to break it up. So let's start off with the first era. Building Azeroth. This is vanilla to Wrath. Here, Blizzard is largely adding systems that didn't previously exist. You have things like flying, arenas, achievements, dungeon finder, new professions, new classes. When Blizzard introduced World of Warcraft, we didn't know what was going to change over time, right? Everybody just assumed there would be things like new races, new classes, right? But you don't think about things like, oh, a new quest system or a new reputation system. Oh, can you please make the guild system a little bit better? Things like that. And a lot of these changes, Blizzard probably didn't even plan. They had to go back and adjust and add these things because of requests from the community. So when you look at all of the systems in the game, it can be really hard to, shall we say, quantify each of these systems individually, because there are a lot of them. And I went through and I thought of as many as I could, and I didn't get all of them. I guarantee you I missed some of these systems, or maybe I didn't explain them properly or whatever. But we're going to start with the baseline and we're going to go from there. 'There. Okay, so World of Warcraft 2004, we had the leveling system. 2005, we had the achievement system. 2006, we had the dungeon finder. 2007, we had the new professions. 2008, we had the new classes. 2009, we had the new arenas. 2010, we had the new classes. 2011, we had the new races. 2012, we had the new arenas. 2013, we had the new professions. 2014, we had the new classes. 2015, we had the new arenas. 2016, we had the new classes. 2017, we had the new arenas. 2018, we had the new classes. 2019, we had the new arenas. 2020, we had the new classes. 2021, we had the new arenas. 2022, we had the new classes. 2023, we had the new arenas. 2024, we had the new classes. 2025, we had the new arenas. 2026, we had the new classes. 2027, we had the new arenas. 2028, we had the new classes. 2029, we had the new arenas. 2030, we had the new classes. 2031, we had the new arenas. 2032, we had the new classes. 2033, we had the new arenas. 2034, we had the new classes. 2035, we had the new arenas. 2036, we had the new classes. 2037, we had the new arenas. 2038, we had the new classes. 2039, we had the new arenas. 2040, we had the new classes. 2041, we had the new arenas. 2042, we had the new classes. 2043, we had the new arenas. 2044, we had the new 8 races, 9 classes. We got the questing system, the reputation system, professions. We had 9 professions and 9 crafting and 3 gathering professions. The transportation system, we had 2 different speed. The transportation system, we had 2 different speeds of mounts. We had the guild system. We have the inventory system, your bags, the banking system, the mail system, auction house, talents, player stats, combat stats, loot, gear, dungeons, raids, PvP. PvP is actually one of the interesting ones because it was in the game from the start, but it didn't actually, we didn't get the honor system or battlegrounds until later on. So technically PvP is a system that was in the game from launch, but not in its current classics WoW state. Those were added down the road. When we got the Burning Crusade, Blizzard decided that we were going to get an update to the majority of our system. So we added new things, but they were all things that were modifying or kind of added on to existing systems. Like, for example, we had banks in vanilla. In Burning Crusade, we got guild banks because people were complaining that, oh, I have to have a bank alt that just sits in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, and it's frustrating, or Ironforge back in the day. So Blizzard added guild banks in Burning Crusade. Flying mounts was another one. That was a really cool back-of-the-box feature that Blizzard could advertise, but it's just an iteration on the transport system. We already had ground mounts, so they gave us flying mounts. We already had the flight path system, and so this was just kind of a progression of that. We had our professions, they give us a new profession. And that's not anything special, right? It's cool, jewel crafting is cool, but it's not like they changed the entire system or added something new. With quests, we got the daily quest system, which was really a novel way to do your questing. The combat was actually really interesting because Blizzard changed their combat philosophy during the Burning Crusade. So we started with, in vanilla, we had the combat percentages, things like hit percent, crit percent, dodge percent, and it made low level items very powerful because if they had a percent on them, they were just as valuable as a high level item with that same percent. So what Blizzard did is they changed all of the percents to ratings, and so now you have hit rating, crit rating, and that calculates to a percentage based on your level. They also introduced new stats in the Burning Crusade. So we got things like resilience, expertise, haste, armor pen. Your weapon skill reduced in value because you had expertise. Your armor pen or armor penetration became something very valuable in later Burning Crusade as more and more pieces of gear had it, which allowed the melee classes to really excel, or the physical damage classes to really excel and kind of jump ahead of some of the caster classes. As far as the end game goes, we had heroic dungeons that were added. We had raids that were changed from 20 and 40 player to 10 and 25 player. And then for PvP, we got arenas in the Burning Crusade, which was the first real step of the PvP system after the introduction of the battlegrounds. I think it was patch 1.5 was battlegrounds. But the Burning Crusade itself didn't really add anything that was like, wow, that's an amazing brand new feature that nobody ever thought of before. No, it was basically just making the existing systems better, some quality of life improvements, and some of the combat improvements, things like that. They gave us some new content in Endgame. We had, realistically, going from vanilla to Burning Crusade, raiding didn't change all that much. There was some changes with the group composition and things like that, but ultimately, that really didn't matter. So yeah, Burning Crusade, a lot of people called it WoW 2.0. In a lot of ways it was. Wrath of Lich King is where we start to get some new systems in here. So we have some of the same. We have the inscription profession that was added. For reputation, Blizzard figured out a way to give us reputation faster. We got our faction tabards, and that enabled people to become exalted with every reputation in Wrath of Lich King. I have that on my Death Knight. It's like every single one exalted. They continued cleaning up the combat stats with things like spell power, getting rid of damage and healing spell stats. Basically just kind of cleaning things up and making things make more sense to new players, because they were getting new players at a tremendous rate. They kept with heroic dungeons, but they added the Dungeon Finder. They also gave us heroic raid in the Burning Crusade, which honestly was kind of cool. It didn't start out as heroic raid though. It started out as hard mode, went into a completely different raid instance. There was the Trial of the Crusader and then the Trial of the Grand Crusader for heroic, but then by Icecrown they just said normal and heroic. So that's where we get the term heroic raid from, because that's when it started. Icecrown was technically the first heroic raid. But we got two brand new systems features in Wrath of the Lich King. The first was the achievement system, which is still in the game today. It's one of the core quintessential World of Warcraft systems that I think pretty much everyone interacts with in the game. And we got the barbershop, which is kind of a feature, kind of a system. It's a way to customize your character and change their appearance slightly. You couldn't change everything right away. That didn't come till later, but you could change a lot. And what you could change was significant. People grew beards. They changed their hair color. There was a lot going on in Wrath of the Lich King with the barbershop. But that was it. The game itself still felt like, wow. There were some design changes with the way that the gear and the looting worked with Wrath of the Lich King. We were able to get epics much easier in Wrath of the Lich King. We were able to traverse through some of these raids at a much faster pace on normal than we were previously. So yeah, some of the dynamics changed, but the systems themselves didn't change in Wrath of the Lich King. It still was the same game. Now let's move on to the second era. And this one we're going to call Modernizing WoW. This is where we take it from the WoW of history, or what a lot of people have started just calling that's the classic era of WoW. And now we start to get these big changes that happen in the game. Blizzard starts redesigning these existing systems and giving us brand new ones that honestly, in a lot of ways, people didn't even ask for. So let's go through this. Cataclysm. We had streamlined questing. So what I mean by that is, in vanilla WoW, you would go to an NPC and they would have a quest. You would pick up that quest and you would go do that quest. And then you would come back and they would either give you another quest or that was it. Cataclysm gave us this, what a lot of people call questing on rails, which is there's a flow to the quest. It's almost like a flow chart. And it just, as you go through it, you hit all the different marks and each one takes you a little bit further down the quest chain until you get to the end and you get a reward. That's the questing system we have today. So Blizzard essentially redesigned the questing system. Now those old quests still exist. You can still go to Outland or Northrend and do the old style of questing. And honestly, it feels way better. I don't like the new style of questing because you can only do one or two things at a time. Maybe three if you're lucky. Back in Burning Crusade or in Anniversary right now when I'm playing it, if you're leveling a character, you can go do 20 quests and do all the quests and then go turn them all in. And that feels so good. But Cataclysm gave us this streamlined questing. They gave us archaeology, the new profession. This is the last new profession that we have received in WoW. In fact, we lost a profession when we got rid of first aid. So yeah, this is the last time we got a brand new, fully functional profession in the game. We got void storage, which was a addition to the banking system. We got the new specialization trees. So these trees, instead of just putting talent points wherever you want, you had to choose your specialization first. And once you did, then you could put talent points into that specialization. Once you filled that one out, then you could start putting points in some of the other trees. Felt a little weird. And this is obviously a transition into the Mist of Pandaria style talent trees that we're going to get later. But it was certainly a stepping stone in that. Blizzard continued adding new stats to the game. We got Mastery in Cataclysm. I forgot that's when we got it, but we did. It was Cataclysm. We got the Raid Finder, which, controversially although it is still in the game, and people still use it. And honestly, in a lot of ways, Raid Finder is better than story mode. So check out the solo queue interview with Jason Lucas, where they discuss that. We got Raided Battlegrounds. And we got the new guild leveling system, which is actually kind of cool. That was something that I honestly forgot about. That it was like a whole thing. You had to actually try to level it. So that was fun. In as far as new systems go, we got the reforging system, which allowed you to change a portion of your stats on an item to different stats. It was a system that only lasted for 2 expansions. By the end of Mists of Pandaria, it was gone. But while it was there, it was huge because it allowed you to get a piece of gear and then you go, well, this has the stats, it has too many of, say, hit rating. It has too much hit rating. It's a waste. So you convert that hit rating into something like crit or mastery. Or it doesn't have enough hit ratings, so now you convert some of your mastery into hit. It was a good system that worked, but it didn't feel very rewarding to use. It was just a chore that you had to go through. The biggest system that we got in Cataclysm, though, by far, and still one of the biggest systems in World of Warcraft today, is transmogrification. You can change your gear to look like something else. As long as you have that piece of gear in your inventory, you could change it. Now, obviously, the transmog system has grown and changed over the years until now. It's a completely different system that's been overhauled, but it was a completely new system that was added to the game. You had new vendors that you had to go talk to. You had new things that people had to start thinking about. Oh, I better hold on to that piece of gear because I'm going to use it for transmog. You had people rolling on things that they had no intention of using as their real gear because they thought it looked cool. So things like that. Transmogrification to me is probably one of the biggest changes that WoW has ever made, just from a overall standpoint. Mists of Pandaria, we got the new commendation system for reputation. So that's the one where you can buy an item that increases the amount of reputation you get once you've reached revered, so you can send it to your alts, and then your alts will get more rep. This was one of the first signs of Blizzard creating that alt-friendly environment that we have today with Warbands. We got the black market auction house in Mists of Pandaria, which was really cool. Buy some rare things. It was really cool because they started putting some of the Nax gear on there, which you couldn't get anymore. There was no way to get it, so that was fun. We got the new talent trees. So I struggled with what to call this because it was I always call them the Mists of Pandaria talent trees because that's when we got them. But they were the 3 choice talent trees. Each row across had 3 choices. You would choose one of those 3, and then you would go on to the next row. I think the original gave us 6 choices, but then we slowly got a few more added on over the years. But by the time we got to Shadowlands, or at the end of Shadowlands, I should say, this was removed and replaced with the current Dragonflight style talent trees. For dungeons, we got challenge mode, which was the precursor to Mythic Plus. It was how fast can you get through this dungeon? We're going to set a timer and you're going to go as quick as you can. And instead of killing all the mobs, people just figured out where every single skip was. It didn't work exactly the way that I think Blizzard intended. But if you ever wonder why it is that Mythic Plus has all the weird caveats that we have nowadays, look at the history of challenge mode in Mists of Pandaria, and that explains a lot. For raid, we got Flex Raid. This is the first time that Blizzard allowed the difficulty of bosses to scale based on how many people were in the raid. So in Siege of Orgrimmar, we had Raid Finder, we had Normal Raid, and we had Heroic Raid. And then Flex Raid was actually a difficulty that was inserted between Raid Finder and Normal. So Flex Raid originally was Normal Raid difficulty. Normal Raid was Heroic Raid difficulty, and Heroic Raid is Mythic Raid difficulty. So if you look back on it, this was the beginning of our current raid system right here. Mists of Pandaria actually added several new features that we had never even thought of before. Scenarios was one. Scenarios were, in a lot of ways, it was the precursor to Delves. Blizzard has been playing with this technology for a long time, and they finally figured out a really good way to implement it, which is Delves, and I think it's great. Also, Ritual Sites uses the same base core technology as Scenarios. Even things like Prey uses a little bit of that as well, kind of putting you into a different phase with your prey target. We got the pet battle system, which Blizzard has kind of nursed along until they finally killed it off at midnight. I mean, it still exists. It's it's a shell of its former self. If you're not familiar with what they did to pet battles, they basically, in the old days, you had to go, you find an animal that you wanted to use as a battle pet, you had to fight it. And if you won that fight, you could capture the pet before you killed it. And if you did capture it, then you would have it. You still had to win the fight against the rest of the animals that you were fighting, but that was something that you could do. Now you get pets by just clicking on them. So it kind of ruins the fun. Blizzard added in the collections tab. So the collections tab was a way for you to put all of the things that you had on your various characters, and now they're all unified in one location. So if you have a horse mount on one character and a saber mount on another character, well, now all of your characters have access to all of your mounts, or all of your pets, or all of your toys, things like that. And then finally we got the first connected realms. This was the first time Blizzard was able to put realms together and combine them into one kind of mega realm. So now where you have people's names that show up, like for example, it will say Denethar -Arathor because I'm on the Arathor server. So that's where this came from. It came from Mists of Pandaria, and that's why it acts that way, because we have all of these connected realms. There are a few realms that are not connected still. Illidan, Area 52, Proudmoore, realms like that, they're not connected. They're big enough that they can just be by themselves. But you can still talk to people from other realms because that technology has continued to grow and evolve from that point. And then Warlords of Draenor, we got a few more new things. First, we had the bonus objectives that were added to the questing system, which I actually really like bonus objectives. I still use bonus objectives to level up when I can. Although I don't really feel like we have a whole lot of bonus objectives anymore in Modern WoW. But profession system, they didn't add a new profession, but they did give us the new catch-up mechanism for professions, which you're able to use in your garrison. We got the new stat squish. So all of our player stats got squished down to smaller numbers because it was getting too big. It was just out of control. We got simplified stats. So we got rid of all of the things like hit and expertise and all of these other stats that were kind of cumbersome to use. And then we got replaced with the stats we have today: crit, haste, versatility, and mastery. We also had multi-strike, which only lasted for the one expansion. A lot of people still have very fond memories of multi-strike, but it's gone. We got Mythic Dungeons and Mythic Raid, so that was kind of a new thing that was added. And like I said, Mythic Raid is really just a redressing of Heroic Raid, and Heroic Raid of modern WoW is really just a redressing of normal Raid. So what people used to do back in the day, raiding was hard, and you actually had to put in some effort. And so now when you go do normal Raid and you're like, this is so easy, what is the point? It's because it's the old flex Raid. They just moved everything over one slot. We got the new revamped character models, which was controversial. A lot of people still don't like it. And what was really weird is that originally in Warlords of Draenor, when we got the new high def, or they're not really high def, but the better character models, not everything was changed, and you could actually turn it off if you wanted to. You're like, no, show me the old ones. But they finally got rid of that option. But the big feature of Warlords of Draenor was the garrison. The garrison was a massive system that was essentially the centerpiece of Warlords of Draenor. It loomed over every aspect of that expansion. It gave you the ability to be your quest launching points, to do your gathering, to if you got the right components, you could put an auction house there. You had your mailbox. It gave you everything you needed. You didn't actually have to leave your garrison ever. The only time you left your garrison is when you were going to raid or a dungeon, and that was it. And that's one of the reasons why people hate Warlords of Draenor so much. It wasn't because, there was no content. Yeah, there was less content in Warlords than other expansions. That is true. But we did get a lot of content. The leveling in Warlords is really good. The raids are really good. Even the dungeons are really good. The problem with Warlords of Draenor is that everyone felt isolated because we all sat around in our garrisons and talked in trade chat, but that was it. That's all we did. And you'd see people when you ran a dungeon or a raid. So I think that's where a lot of the negative memories of Warlords of Draenor come from. It also didn't help that we got, 12 months of Hellfire Citadel at the end of Warlords of Draenor before Legion. that wasn't great, but you know, it's sometimes that's how it goes. I mean, the last expansion had a 14-month Siege of Orgrimmar hiatus, for lack of a better term. So yeah, it's rough, but it does happen. All right, Era 3, the Borrowed Power Era, or the Expansion Systems Era. Okay, however you want to phrase this, because technically we've had borrowed power since vanilla. Tier sets on your gear are borrowed power, right? But this was borrowed power that was very specific to the expansion, because once the expansion ended, we lost whatever it was that we had in that moment. So let's start off with Legion. Legion gave us level scaling for questing, which was really cool initially, but then very quickly we realized that you didn't feel more powerful as you leveled up. And if you go leveling now, that's how leveling is now. And you go and you play the game and you level your character and you're like, okay, I'm feeling not great. By the time you get, like, if you're leveling at midnight, by the time you get to level 89, you are significantly weaker than you were at level 80, because your gear isn't scaled up with you. If your gear scaled with you, I actually feel like it would be a better system, but it's way worse because you just get weaker and weaker as you level, and it just feels terrible. So honestly, I feel like this is one of those systems that we could do without. Legion also gave us Paragon levels for reputation. So once you get to Exalted, then you would basically start a Paragon reputation. I think it was 10,000 rep. And then you would go get a reward. Sometimes that reward was like a mount or a pet or something cool. Paragon rewards have gotten kind of lousy over the years, but that's where it started. It started with Legion. We also got the World Questing system, which was added. And I debated on this one to call this a questing system, or because it's kind of a questing system, but it's more or less like an objective system. You go to do a world quest, you don't actually accept a quest and you never turn it in. You just go to an area, you do the things, and then you get credit for it. It's like an advanced bonus objective, except that bonus objectives also exist and are not world quests. World quests can give really good rewards. They can give you really good reputation, currencies, different things. The world quests have been a amazing change to World of Warcraft. This is probably one of the biggest things that Legion did positively for WoW, was the world quest system. We also got the Mythic Plus system, and as far as positive changes to World of Warcraft, this one is debatable. It's definitely a massive change, and it's definitely I would say it's probably the most interacted with system in WoW. I'd say more people do Mythic Plus than Raid. I don't know that for sure. It's a guess, but I feel like that's probably a pretty good guess. And Mythic Plus is one of those things that, I mean, when it started, it's nothing like what we have nowadays. It was very different. But Blizzard has just slowly been tinkering with this over the years. So if you follow this through line, Mists of Pandaria, we got challenge mode dungeons, which was finish the dungeon as fast as you can. Warlords of Draenor, we got mythic dungeons, which was do the dungeon, but it's harder now. And so Mythic Plus just combined those two things and said you have to do it fast and it's harder. Plus, we're going to let you scale up the dungeon. So if you complete a Mythic Plus dungeon, you get or if you complete a Mythic dungeon, you get a keystone. That keystone has a number on it. So if it's, say, Mythic 2, then that means it's 2 times, or it's 2 steps above. Mythic 3 is 3 steps above, and so forth. So basically, Blizzard created this dungeon system that it can just keep going all the way up. And yeah, you can get rewards to a certain point. The higher you go, though, you stop getting new rewards. You'll still get the existing rewards. It's not like you're ever going to run a Mythic Plus and not get a reward. But the rewards stop increasing in value at a certain point. I think right now it's 12. Above 12, you don't get anything different for running Mythic Plus. But the last part of this, or there's 2 other parts of this. One, Blizzard wanted to kind of up the difficulty and make it interesting. So they added in affixes to Mythic Plus. That gave you the ability to run your Mythic Plus, and you're like, okay, I'm going to run a dungeon. Oh, look, there's a new thing in here that I have to worry about. and some of the affixes were just bad. Some of them were kiss curse type things where it's going to be bad, but if you do this thing correctly, then you get a bonus. And yeah, overall, the affixes, I think, have been kind of a, let's say the community doesn't really love the affixes, which is why we ended up with Resilient Keys and the new Xal'atath affix that basically just gets rid of all affixes. The other thing that Mythic Plus gave us is that Blizzard realized that if you gave people a timer and you made it really hard to kill mobs, then people were going to try and skip as many mobs as they could. So instead of just letting that happen, Blizzard said you need to kill a certain percentage of the monsters in the dungeon. And so that's where your mob count comes from. If you don't get 100%, you don't get credit for completing it. So you have to kill 100% of the mobs that are asked of you, which is not 100% of the mobs in the dungeon. It's an arbitrary number that Blizzard just decides it's going to be this many or this percentage, and each mob gives a different percentage. So you could kill certain mobs and get more or less percentage. And so it's created different tank pathing systems, or the tank will go different routes depending on how many percentage points they still need to complete the dungeon. So that's where modern Mythic Plus that genesis came from. So Mythic Plus itself, while it's had a lot of changes over the years, it's still essentially the core system, which is a combination of challenge mode and Mythic Dungeon with an infinite scaling difficulty and a requirement to kill a certain percentage of mobs in the dungeon. There you go. Okay, other things we got in Legion. We got the class order halls. This is a really big one. Class order halls was massive for class fantasy. It felt really good to go and play as a hunter, a death knight, whatever it was. Some of the class order halls had better quests than others. Yes, that's true. But overall, I feel like they were really strong. They worked. They gave you a very class specific quest. It helped build on that class fantasy. Part of the class order halls was the artifact weapons, and I'm kind of throwing in artifact weapons at the end because artifact weapons to me are a blessing and a curse. Yeah, it was cool to get that weapon that maybe you've heard of before, or maybe Blizzard just invented it for Legion, but you did a cool quest and then you took it to your class order hall and you became the leader or whatever. But the artifact weapons were actually a really difficult part of Legion for a lot of people. Artifact weapons, you had to level them up. And so in order to level up your artifact weapon, you had to grind artifact power. And in order to grind artifact power, you had to do things in the world quests, dungeons, whatever. And you could only get a certain amount of artifact power per week. So you had to log on every week to make sure you were up to speed. If you didn't log on, let's say you went on vacation for 3 weeks, came back, you're now 3 weeks behind on their artifact power. There was no catch-up mechanism. There was no way for you to get back up to where you needed to be. Also, if you had an alt, or if you wanted to play a different if you wanted to play a different specialization, you had to grind more artifact power because it didn't convert over. You couldn't respec your weapon. You just had to get more artifact power. So you had to decide, do I want to level up my weapon as blood, or do I want to level up my weapon as frost, or level up my frost weapon? Because they were actually two different weapons. So each one was leveled independently. Same thing with your alts. Your alts didn't get any credit for the fact that you had a fully decked out artifact weapon. You had to start from scratch on your alt. They improved the artifact weapons so that by the end of Legion, it was actually really good. There was a good catch-up mechanism. You could get your weapon decked out pretty easily. But this is the thing that people often forget about when they talk about how Legion was the best expansion. By the end of Legion, Blizzard had it all figured out. Everything was good. But in the beginning of Legion, it kind of sucked. Honestly, I know some people really liked the artifact weapon and the artifact power grind and all of that. I hated it. I'm too altaholic to enjoy something like that. I could not get behind the artifact weapon. It was just really frustrating. But the artifact weapon and the class order halls worked hand in hand with each other. And those two systems, I feel like, set the stage for the next, when they were introduced in 2016, they set the stage for the next 6 years. And in a lot of ways have informed Blizzard's decisions going forward, because they're so afraid to do something like this again because of how not controversial, but it created a lot of drama. having those in the game. Some classes were upset that their class order hall campaign wasn't as good. Their flying mount wasn't as good that they got from the class order hall. The artifact weapons were cool. Some of them were these legendary weapons that we've heard about a million years, like the Ashbringer. Some of them were just brand new ones that they just made up on the spot. That doesn't mean the quests weren't cool, but it was just weird. And so I think Legion is remembered with a lot of rose-tinted goggles, but these two systems in particular, they were good. And I think if you just look at them at face value and you go, hey, what a cool idea. But the reality of them was very different, and it was very frustrating. And, you know, that's just my experience, but this is my podcast, so I'm gonna give my experience. Okay, Battle for Azeroth. We had a few small changes. Professions, you got it sorted by your expansion. So instead of having to level all the way up to whatever the max profession level was through each profession one by one, you could choose which ones you wanted to level up. So you're like, I don't really care about Wrath of the Lich King leatherworking, but I do care about Cataclysm leatherworking. So you could level up Cataclysm and ignore Wrath of the Lich King. If you leveled up your professions in Warlords of Draenor or Legion, where you got the little boost with the garrison, then you just got everything automatically maxed out up until the point where you were. So it definitely gave an advantage to people who were playing before this happened, but like myself. But you know, it's still not the worst thing. It's like, okay, so if you don't have Mystic Pandaria blacksmithing, if you don't want any of the stuff from there, ultimately, what does it matter? Although now with housing, it does make a big difference because you do need high level of each of the different expansions to be able to craft the different housing items. So I don't know, whatever. As far as the transportation system goes, we got mount equipment. So you could equip different things to give your mounts different abilities, like walking on water or not getting dismounted, things like that. The auction house got a full revamp. So this is actually where the modern day auction house comes from. It happened in Battle for Azeroth. We got the full redo of the auction house, where you can purchase things however many you need. It'll just grab them from whatever is available instead of saying, well, this person put out a stack of 19, so I have to buy the 19. You can just say, I want 12, and it'll just pick 12 out of them. It's a much better way of doing the auction house. I'm really hoping that when we get Classic Plus, that we'll get this revamped auction house as part of that. We got another stat squish, which happens after Legion had ridiculous numbers. I think people were doing in the millions of damage. And it's at a certain point, you just go, okay, this is too much to keep track of, right? And so I think Blizzard is going to be forced to do these stat squishes every few levels or every few expansions. It's just, there's no way around it. The way that the gearing works now, you gear up so fast, your damage increases so quickly. I don't see any other way but to just do a stat squish every expansion or two. One of the biggest changes to the game basically in the history of WoW, but it's one that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, is War Mode. So when WoW first launched, there were 3 different types of servers. There were normal servers, there were PvP servers, and there were RP servers, which were just normal servers, but where people were encouraged to do a little bit more RPing. Later on, we got RP PvP servers, which, whatever. That's if that's your boat, then float it. War Mode changed that entirely. It got rid of the entire idea of a PvP or a normal or PvE server and said every server is the same. But if you choose to, you can enable War Mode. You can only enable it or disable it in a capital city. I think you could enable it in a capital city, but you could disable it anywhere. Any rested area. But War Mode gave us this whole idea of putting the world PvP back in the world. And it did work for a good while. I'd say through Shadowlands, it was really kind of this idea of, hey, this is kind of cool. We can world PvP again. But ultimately what ended up happening with War Mode is that the Horde became the more PvP faction and the Alliance became the more PvE faction. So Horde all switched on War Mode because they wanted to fight, and the Alliance players were like, well, we just want to go quest. So, and that's continued on to this day. It's still, Horde is very PvP focused and Alliance is very PvE focused. It happens in Classic. The PvE servers are primarily Alliance and the PvP servers are primarily Horde. Blizzard has put in certain measures to kind of counteract that, but that's just the player base. There are Alliance that love to PvP and there are Horde that only want to do quests. But by and large, if I had to generalize here, which is what I'm going to do, the Horde want to PvP more. So Blizzard gave a bonus at one point, and I don't know if it's still in the case or if it's still in the game, but there was a bonus for Alliance switching on War Mode that Horde didn't get. So I do know there's a general XP bonus for War Mode across the board, but I don't use War Mode. I don't like PvP. So, all right. As far as expansion specific systems, now there's a few things in here that I feel like were good ideas, bad execution. So first off, we have Azerite armor. So this is the replacement for the artifact weapon. So we went from grinding artifact power to grinding Azerite power. The same idea, but you change the name, change a few letters, and it looks different. Azerite armor did not work right off the bat. Some of the abilities were not good. It was hard to get the Azerite power. It was just a poor execution across the board. It's one of those things that I think, in retrospect, you go, well, obviously this wasn't going to work. But at the time, I think people were really excited by it. They went, ooh, this is a great idea. This is going to be cool. We'll have all this armor with these crazy abilities. Yeah, it didn't really work out. We got Warfronts, which, again, great idea, bad execution. The idea was, what if one of the favorite zones from the old world turned into a battlefield? Darkshore, Arathi Highlands, I forget where else they had Warfronts. The idea was you go there and you fight the Horde or you fight the Alliance, and whoever comes out on top wins, and you get bonuses or whatever. The reality was you went there and you fought NPCs, which is really lame. I cannot stand what happened with Warfronts because the idea was so good. Go here and have an army of Horde players fighting against an army of Alliance players with structure and with weapons of war. It's like, take the idea of Wintergrasp plus, every epic battleground you ever saw, and I put it all in one big blender, and here you go. That's Warfronts. The reality was it was boring, and you were fighting in rares. It's just the same thing. It's a rare drive. You go around, you kill rares, and then ended up being not very good. Island expeditions. Again, they took the idea of scenarios, they put it on an island and said, okay, go get Azerite, but you have to beat the Horde to get it, or you have to beat the Alliance to get it. Look, sorry guys, I'm Alliance player for life. So whenever I start with going against the Horde, that's why. So apologies to all you Horde players out there. You know what? I'm sure you're all lovely people, but you do play Horde. Island expeditions, again, didn't really take off. It was one of those things that I think people did because there was a thing that you could get from it, but nobody really did it because they loved doing it. Nobody was doing it because they were like, ooh, this is fun. And that's been one of the problems in especially in this era of WoW. We were being forced to do things. And I say forced with air quotes because we weren't forced to do anything. You don't have to play WoW. But we were forced to do things that we didn't want to because Blizzard said, hey, the reward is behind this thing. You better go do it. And we didn't want to, but we did. So, yeah, that was the thing. And just as an aside, BFA is probably that expansion to me that most demonstrates where Blizzard started to go off the rails with the story. The Sylvanas storyline, the whole Anduin being unsure of himself as the king, the Sourfang, all of it, it was so ham-fisted and so on the nose. There was no nuance to it. if you're going to tell a more epic story like BFA tried to do, because Legion was a very simple story. Hey, big demons are coming. We got to go fight them. Oh no, our king died. Oh no, our war chief died. Well, we've got to rise up and come out victorious. And oh, look, this guy here who we thought was a bad guy, now he's helping us. Yay. It was simple. The BFA storyline tried to be so clever. It tried to be so smart. And it was not. And you can blame whoever you want. I don't blame Steve Denuser for the Battle for Azeroth. I really don't. Battle for Azeroth was not his baby. I blame him for Shadowlands and Dragonflight. Just me personally. And a little bit of the War Within. But yeah, Battle for Azeroth just had a really hard time because of the story. So that's not really relevant to this particular conversation. I just wanted to point that out. It just bothers me. All right, speaking of Shadowlands, we move on to the Shadowlands, and surprise, we have the very first level squish. So every expansion since vanilla has added a certain number of levels. During Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, they experimented with adding 5 levels instead of 10. With Warlords of Draenor, they went back to 10. I think they should have stuck with 5. I think 5 ultimately is better. But we're on the 10 train now, because Blizzard doesn't care what I think. It's not that they don't care what I think, it's that I'm one person and there's millions of WoW players. So I'm just one voice. It's okay. But I think 5 levels is better because it helps reduce some of the bloat when it comes to the item levels and these stat squishes that we're constantly having to do. But anyway, that's not the point. There was a level squish. So if you were level 120 in Battle for Azeroth, you went down to level 50. And then there was a whole chart that were like, if you're level 111, then you're going to go down to level 46 or whatever it was. I don't remember. It felt weird suddenly being lower level than our classic WoW characters. But I think ultimately it was a good thing because now we're at midnight, we're level 90, and it's like, okay, this actually feels good. We'll get to level 100 in the last Titan, and my prediction is that we'll see a level squish again in the last after the last Titan. So the last Titan will be level 100. Whatever happens, WoW 2.0, the rebirth of Azeroth, whatever the reset is that we're going to get, it's going to include a level squish. That's just what I think. We also got some things like Chromie Time showed up, which if you've played WoW recently within the last few years, you're familiar with Chromie Time. That's how you level up. You get to choose which expansion you go in. So you say, oh, all right, I'm going to level through Burning Crusade. So the Burning Crusade becomes your default choice. The level scale goes all the way up for Burning Crusade. If you join a random dungeon finder, it's going to be a Burning Crusade dungeon. That's how Chromie Time works. I love it. Chromie Time is fantastic. If you're leveling up an alt, that's the way to go. We got our first really big change to the reputation system with Renown. Renown modified the way reputations work in that we're still getting reputation by going and doing quests, and you got 350 reputation with this faction, except now they call it Renown. The thing that makes Renown better than reputation is that Renown has many, many levels. In Shadowlands, I think it was 80 Renown. I think 80 sounds right. And each Renown level got you something, even if it was a small reward. And that's one of the things that WoW is really good at doing, is giving you those little small dopamine hits so you go, ooh, I got a thing. Maybe it's not a big thing. Maybe it's not interesting, but it's a thing. And that is the dopamine that we're looking for. That's what happened in vanilla when it was like, ooh, I leveled, I got a talent point. Ooh, I leveled and it's an even level. Now I have to go to a trainer and I get 3 new spells that are going to bankrupt me. That's what we did. So that was Shadowlands. Okay, so we had a few new features in Shadowlands. When I say a few, I mean a lot. Shadowlands introduced a ton of new things. We got Torghast, which, if you're not familiar with Torghast, if you've heard people talk about it, you're like, what the hell is Torghast? Torghast was a roguelike, and a roguelike is a randomly generated map for some sort of a adventure. So imagine you go to the Deadmines, and instead of zoning into the Deadmines map that we all know and love, it was a randomly generated map that was some sort of pirate-themed dungeon that you had to go through. And each time it was different. and you fought different creatures and different monsters and different bosses. That was the idea behind Torghast. When you zoned in, you got different abilities that you could choose from, and every time you killed certain mobs, you would get a choice where you could add a new ability. Some of the abilities were pretty standard. 3% more damage. Oh, okay, that's cool. Some of them were pretty wild. I remember on the Shaman, that was one of the really big things, is that Healing Rain did damage to the enemies. So it would heal the people you were with, but damage the enemies, and it did a fuck ton of damage. It did a lot of damage. I don't remember what that ability was called. It had some funky name, but anyway, the point is, you got all these wacky abilities, and you could create these crazy builds and do insane damage, or have insane healing, or do insane AoE, or insane single target, or whatever it was. You could build all of these different things in certain ways. So, because the higher you went, the harder it got, but you could get more crazy abilities, and so you could do the higher level stuff. They later added in things like a timer and different things that, to me, it made it less fun, but I felt like Torghast was its most fun when it was just you trying to figure out how to get through this insanely difficult dungeon, for lack of a better term, because it wasn't really when we talk about a WoW dungeon, we think of one thing. This wasn't a WoW dungeon. It was more of a real dungeon. So yes, trying to get through this insanely difficult dungeon and trying to decide which crazy wacky abilities you were going to use to do that. It was fun. I liked Torghast. Then Blizzard ruined it by adding in the legendary currency for it. So if you want your legendary, you've got to do Torghast, and now it became a chore. We renamed it Choreghast. It was a whole thing. It was annoying. Blizzard ruined it. They ruined a lot of things in Shadowlands, I'm not gonna lie. Covenants was another thing that they added in Shadowlands. So when you go to Shadowlands, you get to the capital city of Oribos, and the first thing you have to do is you have to choose which covenant you want to represent, right? Actually, no. You have to level up first, and then you get to choose which covenant you want to be part of. So part of the leveling journey, as you go through each zone, you get a different ability that you use while you're in that zone. So you're in Bastion, you get the Bastion ability for your class. You're in Revendreth, you get the Revendreth ability for your class, and so on. When you get to max level, then you go back to Oribos and you choose which covenant you want. There were certain things that dictated your covenant choice. Primarily, it was the ability that you got, but also it was your soul binds. The soul binds were a character within that covenant who you would choose as your, quote, soul bind, and then you got certain abilities based on that character. Different characters gave you different abilities. Some were better than others. Some of the covenant abilities were better than others. There were so many choices on this whole thing that made it complicated and difficult to choose the air quote correct one. So at the end of the day, what people did is they went to Icy Veins or Wowhead and just chose whatever it said on the guide. That wasn't the intention, but that's what ended up happening. But a lot of people were upset because there was also a very aesthetic component to that. Revendreth looked like vampires. Ardenweald looked like nature-y, like blue nature. Bastion was very angel-y and holy. Maldraxxus was very undead focused and abomination focused. Whatever your aesthetic was, whatever you wanted your character to look like, that was one thing. But you couldn't have the look of one covenant and the ability of the other. You had to pick both. So what ended up happening was that the Death Knight ability from Ardenweald was really good. So you had all these Death Knights running around the friendly critter nature-y place. It didn't make sense thematically. And I think it was a big L on Blizzard's part. Players complained. Blizzard said, okay, don't worry. If it comes to it, we have a ripcord that we can pull and it will save this issue. Turns out they didn't. They had to come up with one. It's because when players said, hey, this isn't working, this fucking sucks, we hate it, Blizzard went, wait for a year. And we did. We waited for a year. By the time patch, 9.2.5 came out and we could change our covenants however we wanted, and it was easy to do, it was actually pretty good. They did a good job at that point, but it was too late. The expansion had already suffered irreparable harm. It wasn't like Legion, where Legion there were some stinker components to it. The storyline in Legion was so good. The artifact weapons for so many classes and so many specs were so good that it overwrote all of the bad parts of Legion. We forgot about them. We put on our blinders and said, no, look at all the good things in Legion. There were a lot of bad things in Legion that if you really break it down, they kind of sucked. But there were so many good things that it just completely overwrote that. Shadowlands was the opposite. The good parts were so few and far between, and the bad parts were so plentiful that it just made it bad. And we just didn't enjoy. We didn't enjoy the storyline. The jailer was a comically ridiculous villain that nobody took seriously. Oh, he's so scary with his nipples out. It became such a meme, and it was frustrating because you're like, I want to have a cool World of Warcraft adventure, not whatever the hell this is. It didn't even feel like WoW. It felt like another game that somebody had tried to make and they couldn't, and so they implanted it into WoW. Oh, wait, that's exactly what happened, because Steve Denuser wanted to do this in a different game, and he didn't get to do it. So when he got hired by Blizzard, he put that game into WoW. That's exactly what happened. I can't say that for certain, but there is a video detailing that. If you want to watch it, I'll put it in the show notes. But anyway, the other things that we got in Shadowlands that were great additions that we still use today are the Catalyst and the Great Vault. Both of those things came from Shadowlands. Let's not forget, Shadowlands actually gave us a lot of cool stuff. We got Chromie Time. We got the Renown system. We got the Catalyst. We got the Great Vault. There were good things in Shadowlands. There were just a lot of bad ones too. So, that's how it goes. I feel like after Shadowlands, though, we need kind of a refresh, a rebirth. Oh, okay. Part 4, Evergreen WoW. Dragonflight, present day. Talent trees return, professions are rebuilt, dragon writing becomes skywriting, warbands, delves, cross-faction, cross-realm, infrastructure. Blizzard went into this era of WoW with the intention of building evergreen systems. They wanted things that survived the expansion, not Torghast and class order halls and warfronts and covenants and island expeditions and Azerite armor and artifact weapons. They wanted something that was just, oh, here's a new thing. Here's a new part of WoW. And they got it. Dragonflight didn't really add a whole lot of new systems. What it did was it rebuilt the game from the ground up. We got a profession revamp. We got a talent tree revamp. We got a guild revamp. We got a user interface revamp. We've got a open world revamp. We got public events that were added to the open world. This was something we had never seen before. There were so many aspects of WoW that were essentially rebuilt in Dragonflight. Dragonflight gets a lot of crap because its story was kind of eye roll. Like, okay, the power of friendship saved us. The power of family. What is this? Fast and the Furious or My Little Pony? Okay, it wasn't the best story. I will give you that. But the systems in Dragonflight are so good, you cannot look at it and think anything but that was a banger of an expansion. Yeah, the story was bad. The raids were good. Okay, the second raid wasn't good, but the first and the third raids were really good. So yeah, we got the profession revamp, a complete overhaul of the profession system, not just to add more abilities and add more recipes. No, it fundamentally changed the way professions work. You now have crafting orders, you have specializations, you have knowledge points that you have to apply to your professions. Your professions are now an entirely separate minigame that you have to play within WoW. And honestly, it was long overdue. And there are certain aspects of the profession revamp that I don't like, but more things that I do like than that I don't, honestly, with that. It's just, it needed it. The professions were so bad, especially after Shadowlands with all the legendary crafting. It was just tedious and annoying. I hated it. The professions felt completely useless unless there was a thing that Blizzard forced you to do, which the legendaries were in Shadowlands. This was so good. The talent tree revamp. Since Mists of Pandaria, we've had the same style of talent trees. 3 choices across, and you just You just maybe add a new choice every expansion, and there's really no nuance to it. You just pick which ability you want. I like this ability. It's cool. What Dragonflight gave us was not just revamping the talent trees. They said, all right, choose your specialization Cataclysm style, where here's your talent trees, but you can't really put points into a specialization until you've chosen which one you want. So you go, okay, I'm a hunter. I'm going to play Beast Mastery Hunter. All right, here's your Beast Mastery tree, but also here's your Hunter tree. And every hunter has the same Hunter tree, more or less. And every different, a Beast Mastery Hunter has a different tree than a Survival Hunter, who has a different tree than a Marksman Hunter. So you can choose your abilities in there, and you go through and you can kind of choose your path, just like the old style of talent trees. Now, they're a little different and they don't work quite the same, and there's some flaws in there, but overall, the Dragonflight talent trees are really good. The biggest thing for me is that they added to ability bloat. There was just so many nodes on the new talent trees. So it was like, well, we're just going to add more abilities on there. You had classes who had too many abilities to press, too many buttons to press for being able to do things. I've got 3 defensives. I've got 3 cooldowns. I've got 9 buttons in my rotation. That's too many buttons to press. WoW should not be that complicated. Having a 3 to 6 button rotation, I feel like is good. Having 1 or 2 cooldowns for defensives and 1 or 2 cooldowns for offensive is good. Anything beyond that, it starts to get tedious and a little too much. And so that is what happened with some of these trees. That's true. But Blizzard is really being really agile with these trees and trying to modify them and change them on the fly. And it's a really good way to do that. These 8-week patch cadences is not just for new content, it's also for class updates. So if you have a class who, let's say 12.1, and you go, wow, my Rat Paladin sucks. This is awful. I hate this. My favorite character, and I can't do any damage. I'm like number 32 on a 30-person raid. Blizzard is being really good at going, okay, the next patch, 12.1.5, we're going to do a Paladin redo, and we're going to improve you. Before, just for people to understand this, if the Paladin sucked in an expansion, they were toast. It was it. You were done. And Paladins never really suck, let's be honest. But let's say Rogue. Rogue sucks in this expansion. Well, guess you have to wait till the next expansion. Or the best case scenario is you have to wait until the next major patch, which that's not even a guarantee, because most of the time you just waited until the next expansion. So being able to say, okay, well, I'm only 2 months away from being better is so much more appealing to people than, well, I guess I have to wait 2 years before I get better. So yes, from that standpoint, the new talent trees are great. The user interface got a complete revamp. You're able to move things around. There's a lot of user mods that have existed throughout the years that allowed you to do exactly this. You can move parts of the interface. You can make it bigger. You can make it smaller. Take your action bars. I want my bar to be 12 buttons. I want it to be 6 buttons, whatever. Blizzard built that into the interface, and they did a pretty good job of it. Now, it's not perfect, but overall, I haven't used a bar add-on since Dragonflight, because I don't need to, because it gives me everything that I need. If I ever came across and said, oh my gosh, I need this really weird, obscure thing to work a certain way, okay, maybe I need to use the mod. But the Dragonflight UI revamp was so good. Yeah, it's... You got one of the first non-mythic related or non-endgame focused related updates for dungeons in a long time, which was follower dungeons. So you get a group of NPCs who are AI controlled, and they go with you through the dungeon. If you're a DPS, you get a tank and a healer and 2 other DPS. If you play a healer, you obviously play that role, and then you get a tank and 3 DPS. And if you're the tank, you get 3 DPS and a healer. It just works out. Now, the AI is not perfect. The hunter is constantly pulling aggro, butt pulling things, although I guess that is pretty accurate. I'd say it's about a good 70% of a real group. I wish there was a little banter. I wish they would kind of have comments that they made and joke and tease each other, but like in a real dungeon. But it's not that kind of a dungeon. But it's good. It's fun. And the reason Blizzard did this is because they wanted to be able to put quests in the dungeons like they did in Dragonflight, and like they have been doing for years and years, and not have people say, but that's a barrier to entry for me because I don't want to group with other players. So they created this whole idea of a follower dungeon to say, hey, if you're a solo player, you can still do the dungeons. You don't have to group up with others. You know what? And it's not just like, oh, you feel like being a solo player. Some people have social anxiety. They can't do a dungeon. They physically can't because it's debilitating to them to think of getting into a group with other people. So, kind of in the same note, but not really. Solo Shuffle was a new PvP mode that was invented. It's a arena. Solo Shuffle, I wanted to say it's the most toxic version of Arena. It's basically you queue for arenas by yourself, and then you get, I think it's 6 people total, and 2 healers, and then 3 DPS or 4 DPS, and you just mix and match. So you group up with different people. Obviously, the 2 healers aren't going to group up together, and there you go. And then the winners at the end are the ones that have the most points. So I haven't done it. I've never done Solo Shuffle. I've heard really bad things about it. People are like, oh, this is awful. It's so toxic. But I mean, the idea of it sounds cool. I'd love to try it, but I'm just, that's no thanks. But of course, the really big thing in Dragonflight that just completely changed the landscape of WoW was dragon riding. Dragon riding is a method of flying mount that is interactive. So instead of just getting on your flying mount and getting up in the air and pointing the direction you want to go and flying that way, with dragon riding, you actually have to tell your dragon, go up in the air, surge forward, do a barrel roll, stop here, whatever it is. You have to give it commands, but the dragon actually flies tremendously faster than a traditional flying mount. So I think the numbers were something in the 900% speed range. So to give you an idea, the original ground mount in vanilla WoW was 60% speed. The epic ground mount was 100% speed. The flying mount in the Burning Crusade was 60, and then they increased it to 150%. And then the epic flying mount was 280%. Those were the speeds that we had, that we were familiar with. The holiday achievement mount was 310%. And then Blizzard eventually added that to the game to say, okay, you could purchase 310% flying for 5,000 gold. So that's how flying was previously. Dragon riding came along, and the dragon riding top speed, if you got everything correct and you managed to tell your dragon the correct commands in the correct way and did it exactly right, you were going 900% speed. It was so fast. Now, the Dragon Isles were bigger intentionally because of that. There was a lot of, all right, you're up high so that when you take off, you're going to be able to fly where you need to go and not have to control your dragon too much, because you could just point at that height. But dragon riding was such a good addition to the game because it made flying interactive. It made flying more than just, all right, I'm going to point in a certain direction and not pay attention. I don't take a whole lot of flight paths. The only time I take a flight path is when I need to go AFK. So if I say, all right, I got to fly to Zul'Aman from Silvermoon. All right, I'm going to go on a flight path, but because I have to go AFK, I'm going to use the bathroom or whatever. Dragon riding was a huge change for World of Warcraft, and it's one that I feel they've completely changed flying now to incorporate dragon riding into the system. So I feel like that's a huge success. It's something that's going to be part of the game forever. So good job on that one, Blizz. The War Within. First off, let's just hit this one real quick. They changed dragon riding to be called sky riding because they added every single mount in the game, except for one. Every mount that was flying capable, they gave it the ability to perform this dragon riding function. But since they're not dragons, they renamed it to sky riding. I think it was called dynamic flying for a few minutes, and then they changed it to sky riding. Anyway, the point is, every mount can now do this. You can do it outside of the Dragon Isles, which you couldn't originally, and it's just part of the game. So what they have done now is when you get to level 10 on a brand new character, so if you've made like an allied race, you're level 10. So you can skyride right off the bat. As soon as you hit level 10, you can soar through the air, which is actually kind of cool. Because your normal mount is not until level 10. So if you were playing a brand new character, yeah, you would have to just run until level 10. And then you get a choice. Do you want a dragon ride, or do you want to ride this like slow ass horse? What do you think? So yeah, that was a really cool change. The War Within also added onto the existing Dragonflight talent trees by adding hero talents, which was a really cool thing that they did. I like the idea, I applaud what they've been trying to do with the talent trees. I fear, though, that from Dragonflight to the Last Titan, we're going to have way too many talent points. We're going to need another reset. And it's a problem with the way that Blizzard does their business model of, all right, the new expansion has to include a level increase and a talent point increase and all these adding more. Well, then it gets to be too much. I don't want to have to choose from, 100 and whatever talent points. That's too much. That's why people just go to Icy Veins or Wowhead and just say, give me the build, and I'll just copy it. Psh, there it is. Okay, done. But it is what it is. One thing I forgot to mention in Dragonflight was we did get cross-faction guilds, and then in the War Within we got cross-realm guilds. So now guilds are factionless, essentially, and realmless. I did join a guild in the War Within that was a Horde guild on Area 52. I joined them on my Alliance Demon Hunter, who was from the Azeroth realm. So yeah, it is kind of cool to be able to just join any guild anywhere from any faction. I'm glad that they've done that. Now, they haven't quite figured out making things factionless. There is still factions in the game, and there are still certain things that don't work if you have the wrong faction. If you're a Horde and you're trying to do something with Alliance players, like world quests. But by and large, they've done a pretty good job of getting past all of that. As far as raids go, we got story mode raid. Now, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. This is a terrible addition to WoW. It's good addition because it allows you to experience the final boss of the raid in a easy to do difficulty with NPC players like your follower dungeon players. From that standpoint, I liked it. What it doesn't do is it doesn't actually give you the story of the raid. It shows you the last boss fight and allows you to see the final boss mechanic or cinematic. You don't actually learn any mechanics. You don't know what the raid is like. You don't know who the rest of the bosses are. You are missing out on so much of raiding that this might as well be called Final Boss Story or something. It's not a story mode raid. That is a wrong name for this. As my good friend Dave Gagne from the Solo Queue continuously points out, Blizzard needs to implement follower raids. And I think he's probably right, although I feel like there's a whole other mess to deal with there. But if I had to choose, I'd pick follower raids over story mode raid. It's just not fun. It's not interesting. I don't feel like I'm with a raid group. Blizzard needs to improve their AI a little bit too. It's just, there's too many problems with it. If I wanted to go do the raid, honestly, it'd probably be easier to just get into a normal group in the group finder. They usually just take whoever. I don't know. I'm really torn on this. I'd love Blizzard to be able to give people a way to see these raid instances and the encounters, every encounter. I think it would be so cool. But yeah, this ain't it. This ain't it, bro. Okay. There were two really big developments in the War Within. Really big. The first was Warbands. Warbands took the idea that they started with early on, especially in Mists of Pandaria, where it was like, hey, you can buy these things for your alts. But I that started even earlier, because even in Cataclysm, we were able to buy things like Cold Weather Flying for an alt. Blizzard took it a step further, and they said, okay, what if your entire roster of characters, every single alt was in one thing? We're going to call it a warband. And every time you do something, your warband gets credit for it. Not your character, your warband. And so it gave us the ability to say, all right, I'm going to go earn reputation now. And your warband gets credit for it, not your character. So if you log on to an alt, guess what? They have the same reputation. And the reason that Blizzard decided to do this is because they said it's not the character earning it, it's the player. The player is the person doing the work, so they should get the reward, no matter which character they're playing on. And I agree with that. My issue with Warbands is that Blizzard can't help themselves from saying, oh, but this one thing, it's not Warbound. You can't do this one on the Warband. This one has to be done by character. As soon as you create a rule and that works, they start creating exceptions to it. And that's where I have a problem. I work in IT. And so I'm very big on, if you create a policy, you need to stick to it. Well, what we do at my job is we create a policy and then we immediately start creating exceptions. I've actually had that before, where it's like during the testing cycle, I will build the exception group in because I know it's going to be asked for. Oh, well, what if we have an exception? Yeah, just put them in this group. It's fine. So yeah, Warbands, 90% good, 10% ass. And that's just because Blizzard has decided to not implement it correctly. They are not willing to just let everything be Warbound and available to your Warband. They want to hold on to that idea of, oh, but this is for one character. Why? Who cares? It doesn't matter. So my wife and I both have 2 accounts, right? I have 2 different Battle.net accounts. So if I do something with my alt, I don't get credit for both because they're not in the same warband. My wife has 1 Battle.net account with 2 WoW accounts on it. So she's been doing things before where she's doing things on one character and then she's logged onto her alt who's sitting in the inn in Oribos or something. And she'll go do something and she'll get an achievement, and her alt sitting in the inn will get the achievement for killing Mythic whatever. And it's a little ridiculous, but that's the way essentially that it works. So I think by and large, Warbands is a good addition to the game. I hope that Blizzard would just decide exactly how they want it to work and then tell us that here's how it's going to work, and then be like, okay, now the expectations are set and I don't have to wonder. The other really big thing that they added to the War Within was delves. Now, delves were a massive undertaking for Blizzard. Not in terms of the technical, but in terms of the sell that they had to give to the player base, because the player base said, what the hell is this? Some people realized really quickly what the delves were good for, but a lot of people just didn't get it. They thought, is this a replacement for dungeons? Should I be doing delves or dungeons? What is this? Blizzard themselves didn't help, because they said things like, we want delves to be an endgame pillar alongside dungeons and raids. It's not. You can have an endgame pillar and you can say delves is an endgame pillar, because kind of it is, but it's not on the same level as raids or dungeons. It's like a support pillar that's over on the side, it's still supporting some stuff, but it's only doing a little bit of work. So yeah, delves are great. It's a small, think of it as a small 1 to 5 player dungeon. So you can choose, you can do this by yourself, you can take up to 5 people and you do it. You don't go in there and kill a bunch of bosses and get loot. What you do is you achieve certain objectives, think scenarios from Mists of Pandaria. You achieve certain scenarios, and at the end you kill a boss, and then when you're done, you get credit for the things that you accomplished while you were in there. Usually it's going to be a certain number of treasure chests that you open up. If you're doing content out in the world, you get keys that allow you to open up a special chest at the end. And if the delve is only if the delve is a bountiful delve. There's all these caveats and criteria, but the long and the short is it's a dungeon. It's a dungeon that you can do by yourself or with up to 4 other people. You also get a companion that goes with you. So if you do a delve in the War Within, you had Brand Bronzebeard with you. Now in Midnight, we have Valera Sanguinar. Who knows who we're going to have in the Last Titan, but the idea is 1 companion per expansion. And I think the delves are really good. They were originally sold on this idea of a quick 10-15 minute run. It's more like 25 to 30 minutes, but still it's fun. I mean, you could do a delve fast. If you ignore some of the rewards at the end because you're like, I'm maxed on crests or whatever, then yeah, you could probably do a delve in 15 minutes. Sure. But if you're like, well, I've got to clear all the Nemesis groups, and the Nemesis groups are there's a big bad at the end of every delve season who you have to kill. And this person sends out their minions to go fight you in the smaller individual delves. But you can go to the big delve where the big bad is hanging out and kill that person, kill that monster, whatever they are, and you get an achievement for it. So it's not particularly rewarding. It's more of a, I wanted to do this type of thing. So yeah, delves are a really good addition to the game. I've talked a lot about delves in this podcast, and I feel like delves is one of those things that is just here to say. Okay, now we're on to Midnight. There have been a few things added to Midnight so far. We still have some time because there's things like the Labyrinth, which is like a delve raid that we're going to have potentially coming in 12.1.5. A couple things that we got. We got a stat squish again because Blizzard just can't stop raising item levels. We got Layers. Layers is a new type of raid encounter. It's essentially the world boss, but put into an instanced dungeon. So you go into a layer and you choose your difficulty. You can say I want it world tier, like world boss level difficulty, or you can go all the way up to mythic difficulty. So yeah, that's the new thing. And it's Blizzard's way of kind of reimagining the idea of a world boss. Rather than just having the boss sitting out in the world, you have to go to their lair and kill them. I like this better in practice, the idea of it, but in practice, I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. I haven't gotten onto the game yet, but when I do, I'll check out the lair boss. So the other thing that we got added in the War Within was the prey system. The prey system is another another end game system that was added. Prey works in the idea of if you're going to go hunt something. If you want to go hunt something, you got to track your prey, which is where the name comes from. So the idea is you go out into a zone where your prey is located. You do content, world quests, bonus objectives, whatever. And the more you do, the closer you get to finding your prey, your target. They can also attack you. So they can jump out of the shadows and attack you in the middle of, you just pulled 4 mobs and here's your prey. So you have to fight them off and they will retreat eventually. Once you've achieved enough of your, or put enough work into it, basically, then you can go kill your prey. You go to their lair, or not their lair. You go to where they are and you kill them. And that's it. That's the whole thing. It gives you some gear. It gives you some currency. It's a small little thing that you can do. It's basically a companion to world quests, but it gives you end game level gear, which is really nice. So I think Prey is a really good addition. I'm hopeful that it will stay with us after midnight. So I think that's a really good addition to the whole end game system, but remains to be seen. This stuff is all really new in midnight. And finally, the big one. Player housing was a system that was added. It actually, technically, it was at the end of the War Within, but it is a midnight system that was added. It just got early access in the War Within. If you pre-purchased Midnight, you got early access in the War Within. But if you didn't pre-purchase Midnight, you got it when it launched. So whatever, it's a midnight system. And it's exactly what it is. Player housing. You build a house for your player. You get one house on the Alliance side, one house on the Horde side, and assuming you have an Alliance or Horde character. And you can decorate your house however you want. There's decor items in the game. You go back and you run old raids, you get decor items that drop that maybe you get those currencies from those old raids. You can go to vendors in those old zones and buy decor items. You have the old crafting professions that can craft decor items for your house. There's a whole infrastructure put in place for player housing. And one of the things that I really find fascinating about player housing is that all the people who kind of poo-poo it, who go, oh man, nobody does player housing. You don't do player housing. Trust me, there are a lot of people who do. A lot. It is super popular. There are people who play WoW just for player housing. Think about that. So that's it. That's where we are. Now, we've come a long way from, dungeons and raids to Mythic Plus and Mythic Raid. Yeah, things are different. And the World of Warcraft has evolved over the years. But ultimately, those core systems that we had back in vanilla, the races, the classes, questing, reputation, professions, guilds, banking, those are all the same systems that we have now. They've just been advanced over the years. And in some cases cleaned up and made better. In some cases made a little bit more clunky. I love the profession system, but honestly, there are times when I hate it because it's too much. It's too complicated. They put too much effort into it. The gearing system in WoW is great. It's so much fun until it's not, and it becomes tedious and tiring because you're constantly having to go farm the next season of gear. So what I'm hoping is that Blizzard has learned the correct lessons from the last 3 expansions and not the incorrect lessons from the 3 before. There were good things that came from Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands. All of them gave us good things. We got Renown from Shadowlands. We got Chromie Time from Shadowlands. Battle for Azeroth gave us mount equipment. It gave us the new profession that are sorted, and even the new profession system still uses that. It gave us war mode. Legion gave us level scaling, world quests, Mythic Plus. There were good things that came out of those expansions. There were just so many bad things that thankfully stayed in those expansions. And now what Blizzard is giving us to give us these little things one by one. They go, here's Warbands, here's Delves, here's Prey, here's player housing. These are the big systems that we will carry forward into the future. Things like ritual sites, that's probably going to stay a midnight thing. Decor duels has already gone away. It was only here for 4 months and then it was gone. So yeah, there are always going to be things that come and go. What was the one that we had in The War Within? Dastardly Duels or Dastardly Duos. It went away. It was here for 8 weeks. Nobody's thought about it since. You probably already forgot about it. But Blizzard can take these systems, and if they implement them correctly, they don't have to be a expansion system. Dragon Riding was a Dragonflight system, but we all knew this is going to stay. This is too cool to go away. And turns out we were right. It's now part of the landscape of WoW. Just like Warbands was not the War Within system. It was a system that was introduced in the War Within. And it's just here for good. So for every Torghast, for every class order halls, for every island expeditions, we get something cool. We get something that actually gives us character and actually gives us something for the future. There have been a lot of expansions where we just got not a lot of great features. We got some good quality of life components added to different features, but at the end of the day, nobody cares about scenarios. Nobody cares about reforging, but we do care about transmog. We do care about the barbershop. We want those things in the game. We do care about the collections tab. We just don't care about the mission table. So, yeah, WoW has changed a lot over the years, but in a lot of ways, it's still the same game. It's just a spruced up version of it. So hopefully this helps for somebody who's only ever played Classic. I know it's a lot of information. And I think that maybe there's more conversations available in the future, but for now, I think this is a really good way to identify how the game has changed over the years and maybe what will happen going forward. All right, that's going to wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I went a little long. I don't generally like to go this long on an episode, but I felt like I needed to get through this, and I didn't want to shortchange any of these systems, and I did. I ended up shortchanging a bunch of them, but I wanted to hit the high notes. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is the type of thing that I want to do more of. I want to get into these kind of deep dive discussions on the history of the game, or the lore, or why it is that we do certain things, or player behavior. I don't want to just get on here and go, here's the latest patch notes, here's the latest raid. There are plenty of podcasts that actually do that well. I don't do a good job of that. I'm not a news reporter. I can get on here and give my opinion, and you can love it or you can hate it, or you can be somewhere in between. But at the end of the day, listen to the show. And if you have an opinion and you think that I'm crazy, you think I'm wrong, tell me. Put it in a Spotify comment. I'll do an episode about it. Maybe. It depends on how good your comment is. Just be interesting. Don't just get on there and go, I hate you, you suck. Give me a good comment. There was a comment that somebody gave me a while back, and I don't remember where it was, but he gave me some pretty good criticism. And I thought, you know what? I'll take that, because you know what? I can always grow and change, and I can always make the podcast better. But if I don't try, the podcast can definitely get worse. So hopefully this was a good episode, and I hope you guys liked it. If you are enjoying the podcast, and if you would like to help us out, there's a couple different things you could do. You could consider leaving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those really help out the distribution. Just leaving the rating really helps out. And if you don't want to leave a 5-star, I get it. Not everyone deserves a 5-star. Maybe I don't. But if you do, that'd be awesome. You can also leave an Apple Podcast review or a Spotify comment, and I will read those on the air as they come up, as I did for this particular one. If you're watching this on YouTube, which, as I've said before, I'm sorry, I'm not doing video right now. I'll probably start that back up after BlizzCon. I've just had too many things going on to worry about having to make sure my room is clean and make sure that I've taken a shower. So, yes, I am doing this episode stinky. Deal with it. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can help us out by giving us a like and a comment and a subscribe. Those all really help. And finally, if you really want to help us out, you could consider joining our Patreon. Patreon is where people can help support the podcast through the use of IRL money. And I'm not asking for a lot of money. I'm not out here. I'm not even asking you to do anything. You don't have to do anything. As I've said before, and I will continue to say again, Azeroth United will always be free. I will always provide the podcast free of charge to anyone who wants to listen. I mentioned this last week, and I did put an ad roll at the end of the podcast. I don't have any plans to put one at the beginning or in the middle. So right now it's just, I'm putting it at the end, and I feel like that's good enough. So, but if you do want to help us out, if you're enjoying the show and you say, hey, I want to help you out because podcasting does cost money, you can consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Azeroth United. And you could join one of our patron tiers. I recently redid the Patreon. Those of you who are on the Patreon might have seen some changes going through, but we have 3 different tiers of patrons. We've got our adventurer tier, which is $1 an episode. We have our veteran tier, which is $3, and we have our champion tier, which is $5. Those all have different levels of rewards available to them. You can check those all out by going to the Patreon and looking at it. But at the end of the day, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just listen to the podcast and enjoy it and say, you know what? You did a good job. I'm happy. And I'm good with that. I don't need you to do anything. I want to make sure that that's available for people who want to help out, because some people do. And I really appreciate it. It means so much to me. And honestly, it helps me with coming up with new ways to entertain you, because that's why I'm here, right? I'm here because 1, I want to do a podcast. I just felt like it. But 2, I want to entertain. And if I'm not entertaining, what's the point? So having Patreon supporters gives me the incentive, for lack of a better term, to come up with new ways to entertain you rather than just getting on here and doing trouble. Oh, this is my podcast and I'm talking to you about World of Warcraft. I don't need to just do that. I can come up with something interesting, come up with something novel and go, hey, I just had this cool idea. Why don't we do this? And I'll throw it on the Patreon and we can check it out. The more I do that, or the more people are supporting me on there, the more things I can do, because at the end of the day, I do have a budget. And so, yeah, I can expand the podcast more if I'm, the more support I get. So anyway, sorry, this is way out of what I wanted to be talking about right now. And I feel like I sound like an asshole, so I'm sorry. But anyway, yes, so you can join the Patreon. I did want to thank our patrons right now, who are Stuglife, Thelial, Greybeard, Raven, Azrin, and Luch. Thank you all so much. You definitely help make Azeroth United possible. And I think that's it. So thank you again. And remember to be good to each other out there. That's a real person on the other side of that keyboard. And, you know, just be nice. Don't be a dick. You know, if you take one thing out of this show, it's just don't be a dick. Okay? I don't care what your belief system is. I don't care, you know, what you feel about politics or religion or any of that stuff. I don't care. Just don't be a dick. And have fun and be nice to people that you play World of Warcraft with. That's it. All right. Take care. I love you all. And I'll see you in Azeroth.